FTC Democrats sue to undo Trump's unlawful firing. Source: www.law360.com. March 28, 2025. Recently fired Federal Trade Commission members Rebecca Kelly Slaughter and Alvaro M. Bedoya challenged their terminations Thursday in D.C. federal court, arguing President Donald Trump violated bedrock, binding precedent, permitting their removal only for cause. Bedoya and Slaughter had vowed to sue almost immediately upon their terminations last week, setting up a direct showdown over the Federal Trade Commission Act's safeguards permitting commissioner removal only for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office, and Trump administration arguments that those safeguards and the 1935 U.S. Supreme Court precedent enshrining them are unconstitutional violations of presidential control over the executive branch. Plaintiffs will not and do not accept this unlawful action. Plaintiffs bring this action to vindicate their right to serve the remainder of their respective terms, to defend the integrity of the commission, and to continue their work for the American people, Slaughter and Bedoya said in the complaint. The White House did not immediately respond to requests for comment Thursday. The new lawsuit joins an already brewing legal battle over Trump's termination of National Labor Relations Board member Gwynne A. Wilcox, in a dispute over whether Congress can protect members of independent agencies from at-will presidential removal, or those safeguards unconstitutionally impede executive authority. Both legal fights are likely to reach the U.S. Supreme Court. For Bedoya and Slaughter, the answer is already plain. They've spent the week since their terminations warning that if Trump can remove them at a whim, it sends a warning to the FTC's remaining commissioners if they're unwilling to treat big tech companies and other large corporations that have cozied up to the president with kid gloves. Commissioner Slaughter and I just sued to clarify that we're still FTC commissioners. But this is bigger than us. This is about economic stability. If the president can break a 90-year-old Supreme Court ruling to fire us for no reason, he can do it to the Fed, the FDIC, and SEC, Bedoya said in a Thursday post on X. In a statement released through their attorneys with Protect Democracy, Slaughter noted the FTC's work protecting consumers and renters, fighting monopolies and safeguarding privacy. And we can do all of this because the FTC can't be bought with campaign contributions or bullied by politicians, Slaughter said. Commissioner Bedoya and I may be the ones with our names on this lawsuit, but if you buy things at the grocery store or the pharmacy or the gas station and you care about inflation and the health of our nation's economy, this is your lawsuit too. The fight hinges on the High Court's 1935 ruling in Humphrey's Executor versus United States, which struck down President Franklin D. Roosevelt's attempt to terminate FTC Commissioner William Humphrey, who died while his challenge was pending, leaving the fight up to the executor of his estate. The justices found at the time that Congress could safeguard FTC commissioners from removal, in an exception to the president's normal power to control the executive branch and fire its officers, because the agency was a predominantly quasi-judicial and quasi-legislative body with little focus on the enforcement typically reserved for the executive branch. 90 years later, Bedoya and Slaughter said in Thursday's complaint that in the March 18 termination email from Trent Morse, Deputy Director of Presidential Personnel, Trump identified no bad conduct that would justify their removal under the FTC Act. Instead, tracking nearly word-for-word President Roosevelt's message to Humphrey, President Trump's message simply asserted, "Your continued service on the FTC is inconsistent with my administration's priorities. Accordingly, I am removing you from office pursuant to my authority under Article 2 of the Constitution," the Democrats said. Trump has not indicated when, or if, he will nominate others to fill the Democratic seats. While the FTC Act calls for 5 commissioners, 3 from the president's party and 2 from the other side of the aisle, there's no statutory timeline for filling vacancies. The agency, as recently as the Biden administration, has run for long periods with a limited or one-party roster. Without Slaughter and Bedoya, the FTC is currently down to 2 Republicans, Chairman Andrew Ferguson and Commissioner Melissa Holyoke, removing the 2-to-2 party line split that likely kept the agency from undoing now-disfavored Biden-era efforts like a ban on non-compete agreements. Trump's pick for a 3rd GOP member, Mark Meador, a partner at Crescent Meador Powers LLC, is currently awaiting Senate confirmation. Ferguson and Holyoke have both defended Trump's removal powers. Ferguson argued this week that the FTC is a very different agency than what the High Court encountered in the 1930s, now wielding what are plainly executive branch powers. He said he expects the justices will overrule Humphrey's executor, contending that creating a separation between the president and the administration of the government creates a separation between democratic elections and a representative government. Ferguson also defended the firings Thursday in response to the new lawsuit, calling presidential removal powers a necessity to ensure democratic accountability. My Democrat former colleagues are entitled to their day in court, but I have no doubt that President Trump's lawful powers will ultimately be confirmed. In the meantime, the Federal Trade Commission will continue its tireless work to protect consumers from unlawful monopolies and fraud, Ferguson said in a statement. Recent rulings by the Supreme Court indicated the justices may be willing to revisit the precedent. In its 2020 decision in Sila Law v. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the court found the CFPB's director could be fired at will. In 2021, the court extended that holding to the Federal Housing Finance Agency's head in Collins v. Yellen. While those decisions were specific to agencies with a single leader, rather than multi-member boards like the FTC, at least some conservative justices have expressed a desire to target Humphrey's executor directly. According to Bedoya and Slaughter's complaint Thursday, Trump's termination notice pointed specifically to the High Court's recent handling of removal restrictions. But they argued that the notice left out a key distinguishing point of Sila law, referring specifically to the CFPB's leadership by a single director and the decision's extensive discussion of the ways in which the agency at issue in that case, the CFPB, differs from the FTC. Nor did the message acknowledge that Sila law expressly declined to revisit Humphrey's executor, and, to the contrary, even suggested that Congress could convert the CFPB into a multi-member agency to remedy the constitutional issue identified in that case, i.e., by making the CFPB more like the FTC, the Democrats said. Slaughter and Bedoya are represented by Benjamin L. Barrick, Amit Agarwal, Beau Tremitiere and Jared F. Davidson of the Protect Democracy Project, Inc., and Aaron Crowell, Gregory A. Cleric and David Kimball Stanley of Cleric Garin Riesbaum LLP.